so much of what you said too, like around the just spiritual distraction and the just like having that intentional, conscious approach to life is so important. It's like being mindful of what you consume, food wise, drinking wise, media wise. Like there's so much of it that sometimes from the perspective of someone that isn't on the side of being awakened, and I don't mean that judgmentally, but it seems controlling. It seems like it's almost like, oh, that feels like it's controlling, or that feels like not fun. There's this like idea around like, oh, just like watch whatever crappy TV, eat whatever crappy food, or not really take care of yourself. And I think when you do start to take care of yourself and really be mindful of everything you're consuming, it's like really powerful.
Yeah.
And there's so much about that too, where it's like being able to talk freely about God and have the conversation like, oh my God, God is good. Or like, this is definitely an act of God, I think is really important. But when you talk about that, the spiritual distraction, like what do you mean? And how do you stay mindful of it?
So one, let me just say in regards to, it feels controlling.
Yes.
And it's easier just to eat bad and listen to bad things. I think what happens is we're so conditioned to those things that we don't understand the impact it's having. So it's kind of like if you've been eating bad your entire life, you don't realize what that hamburger does to you, so to speak. But then go without meat for a few months, eat clean, detox, whatever. Now eat the hamburger, and now you feel it. Now you're feeling tired and dry, and you're like, holy crap, this is what this was doing to me this entire time. But I had no clue because I was eating it all the time. So I think for a lot of people, they won't understand how much that TV, that music, hell, the social media page you're going to that's filled with negativity in the comment section that you just keep reading all the comments. And I've done it myself, okay? How much that's actually impacting you, not just in that moment, but for the rest of your day. And then how that day carries over to the next day. And that negative energy just keeps rolling. So we have to be careful with that. So now as far as the distraction, I believe it's on all levels. I believe with the food, all right, what they're putting into the food and how it bombards our digestive system, all right, and doesn't allow our bodies to kick into its natural mechanisms of healing and all these things. Hell, just eating as much as we eat in general, like the body is a self-healing organism. It knows what to do and how to handle itself if you allow it to. But we keep putting stuff into it that it doesn't allow it to get to that point. You know what I'm saying? The things that we watch on TV, again, it's pouring negativity. It's pouring fear into our spirit. It's pouring all this nonsense that when you're operating in that energy, how can you be spiritually connected? If you're walking in fear, how are you walking in faith? You see what I'm saying? How are you going to really connect with God if you're busy trying to analyze things for yourself? So that's how that pours away. The music, same thing. It's just all the negativity that it puts in our minds. I remember one time I was listening to this hip hop song. I won't say what song it was, but it was like a few years ago. And I used to listen to it back in college. Yeah. And I was driving and I heard the lyrics for the first time where it said like basically slap her if she says the wrong thing. Like it was basically advocating domestic abuse. And I'm like, holy, like, this is what I've been listening to this whole time. Like, Exactly. The beat sounds great. I didn't hear that. But now I actually heard the words. And there's a lot of things, if you actually sit down and listen to the words, you're like, this is what it's saying? And people don't understand the power of the mind and how subconsciously you're being fed these messages, being fed these images, and what it's actually doing to you. So again, all of that distracts you, all that pulls you away spiritually, and it makes it harder for people to understand. And I even have to say, so one of the things I'm considering doing in the future is doing a podcast based off of supernatural experiences. Because I feel like so many people have experienced things, but they're led to believe they're crazy. They're led to just, dismiss it. It's nothing, whatever. And even that's a distraction because you're not letting people go deeper into figuring out what's really going on here. You know, let's just dismiss it, put it to the side. But then if you actually went deeper, not only would you discover some new things, but you would spiritually grow. Because now you're venturing into a whole other world that you're going to have to learn more about. And that opens all kinds of doors. So this is on so many levels.
So many.
I feel like we're just being pulled away spiritually, because I'll say this. It's when we get in tune with the spirit that we will no longer fall for the BS. You see, the world is filled with deception and distraction. We are being lied to every single day. But the more you get into, like, you know, God knows better than what we think we can see, hear, and analyze. Once we get in tune spiritually, and even if you don't look at it as a spiritual God thing, how many times has someone said their gut instinct was right? Their intuition was right. Their inner voice was right. There's something within us as human beings that knows the answer. But if you are, again, too detached from it because of everything that we're bombarded with, you don't get the truth. You will just fall into feeding into the lies.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is like, now I know why too you came at this time and why you're here, because this is like what I'm obsessed with, especially with the music thing. It's like, because I used to be like that too. Like, Lil Wayne was like my fave. Young Jeezy. I used to bump Young Jeezy in my Honda Civic in Cincinnati, Ohio. And now that I've sort of come to terms with understanding the subconscious mind, and it's so interesting, I find that so many people are so interested in the subconscious mind and subconscious programming, or they know that on social media they need to block accounts that they feel like trigger them. But then when you kind of move it a little bit further, where you're like, oh, do you know how powerful music is? It's like, yes. But then you're like, do you know that like the words are essentially programming you, because they're leading you, you know, it's actually using the vibration of the music to sort of like put you in a state where they can program you with the words. And then people kind of fall off. They're like, oh no, that's like crazy.
Yep.
And you're like, but we all know this thing. And I think that's when you really start to see like what's going on with pop culture and media, how further away from ourselves it brings us. Yeah. And it's been hard because, I mean, my husband was like the other day, he's like, damn, we used to listen to so much hip hop together. That was so fun. I'm like, I know. Now I listen to like Sunday service and like, that's it. And so I kind of missed that life when I didn't really know. Thank you so much for tuning in to Morning Microdose by Almost 30.
We hope you enjoyed waking up.
As always, we encourage you to take what resonates and leave the rest. If you enjoyed this trip, tune into the full episode on the Almost 30 podcast. All episode information can be found in the show notes.
Make sure to subscribe, and if this becomes a part of your morning routine, be sure to share it with a friend. We have new inspiring doses Monday through Friday. Follow us on Instagram at Morning Microdose, and follow Almost 30 at Almost 30 Podcast.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the vortex.